welcome back. Welcome back, welcome back, welcome back. We're here again. I'm gonna go over and explain this one lesson to you. It's the last time we're gonna go over the story pole. Just wanna make sure that the story pole, that you have it and that you have a better understanding of it. I did a video before on a story pole. I kind of really want to go over it again. There was something that was said in that last video that I kind of just really want to reiterate. There's no editing here, so with that being said, causes me to have to go back and do another video. So here we got the story pole that we're getting ready to go over again with you. And it's letters like TC, BC abbreviations. TC stands for top cripples. BC stands for bottom cripples. Over here, we have our plates. We have our double top plate. That's the plate that's at the very top. We have our top plate. That's the plate that's underneath. This is the plate that frames first, that holds your framing together first. The double top plate is the plate where all the other walls come and able to tie into. That plate ties into other walls tie into this plate. Okay? So we have our bottom plate at the very bottom plate. I didn't write it down. By this time, if you've been watching my videos, you should pretty much know what the terminology is on just a regular frame wall. This is a side view. We did go over before sectional view drawings for a building when you're reading blueprints. This is a sectional drawing when you're reading and looking at the side of a 2x4. This is a 2x4. It could also represent a 2x6 stud. This is where you get your measurement from for your top cripples, your bottom cripples. This is for your windows and your doors. We want to explicitly say that because this is very important that you know how to calculate the top cripple measurement. You know how to calculate the bottom cripple measurement. These measurements are very vital. You only have a bottom cripple for a window. You have a double sub sill in your framing. This is two framing members that's marked with the X. That's looking at the side view of a 2x4 that's facing you, okay? That's double sill. You really want to stay away from framing single sills in your framing, and that's due to you want your window flange to have enough meat. And when I say meat, I'm talking about lumber, that there's way more than enough wood and lumber there for it to be screwed into, nailed to, okay? So here we have our header sizes. We have our header sizes. So let's go with the flow of what we're talking about when we talk about header sizes. Headers are determined by how wide the window or doorway is. You know you have doors that can be 4 foot or 6 foot. Special 4-foot doors, these doors that you will probably find in mostly hospitals, funeral parlors, okay? Very small sliding glass doors. You know, these are rare, but they can be made and they can, be put in a wall unit. So you have your 4x4 header. Now, when we talk about earlier about height of header, the height of your header is going to be 6'10". Why 6'10"? Okay, there's a standardized height when it comes to doors, period. 6'8" is the standard size height for door height, especially for the openings, okay? But that's to the finish. Remember, you got carpet or you have tile. You know, your flooring plays a big part in your height as well. So a lot of your calculations, especially when you like doing stairs, you want to be able to calculate what is your finish on your flooring, on the bottom floor and on your second floor when you're dealing with stairs. Get into that a little bit later. Okay, stay with us, stay tuned, pay attention. Pay attention. All right, class. As we go through the 4x4, the 4x4 is already going to be determined in the last videos that I've produced. I told you what that length of the header of the 4x4 will be for certain opening sizes. 4x4s can extend as far as supporting 4 foot, 4 lineal feet of an opening, okay? Minimum. All right. Now you have your 4x6s. This is used usually when you have an opening that's 5 foot. Okay. You have your 4x8s. Now we get into heavier stock when it comes to this rough framing. This is all rough framing. You have your 4x10s and you have your 4x12s. These header stocks, they're that size because there's usually some type of weight, beam, or something that's being transposed over them. And then you have a gap space when it comes to your 4x12. As the bigger your header gets in terms of its thickness, okay, from 4x4 to 4x6 is like a 2-inch difference. That's 2 inches added on. That means the bigger your header, the smaller your cripple gets, because the header is growing, so the cripple gets smaller. Okay, so if you got a 4x12 or 4x10, let's pay attention. Let's go over this chart over here. So I got two. I got my top cripples here. I've already predetermined what they are for you. So don't get over exerted about the 11/16. We can also say 5/8. 5/8 is 10/16. A 16 in framing, rough framing, there's not a lot of being, taken off or being considered, oh, it's too, it's not big enough, you're 16 off. No, framing can usually be within 1/8 of an inch, and in some cases you can be 1/4 of an inch gap. I like my framing cut tight. I do finished carpentry as well, and I look at framing as such. If it's tight, it's right. So you got to remember that. If it's tight, it's right. Okay. With a 4x4 header, your cripple sizes will be 8 and 11/16. Or let's just say 8 and 5/8. 8 and 5/8. With a 4x6, your cripple sizes, and these are the cripple sizes, as you see, my 4x6 goes from here to the bottom of where the 4x4 is. We start off with the 4x4 with the story pole. You have to mark these lines for each of your header as it grows, because each header you will take a dimension from the top of your top plate down to the top of that header. That's going to give you your top cripple size. For my 4x4, if I measure from the bottom of my top plate to the top of my header, for a 4x4, I will come up with 8 and 11/16, or 8 and 5/8, which we did break down measurements in my earlier videos. 11/16 is going to always be 11/16 as a fraction, but 10/16 is equivalent to 5/8. 5/8 and 10/16 are the same measurement. 4x6. So if I come over back here to my chart, to my little graph here, my little drawing, a 4x6 is here. If I go with my 4x6 to up underneath my top plate, it's going to be 6 and 11/16. Let me just use 6 and 5/8 if it's more comfortable for you. But the 11/16 is the measurement that you take off your story pole. You can't cut it 10 and 5/8. 6 and 5/8 or 11 5/8. The 11/16 can be 5/8 period. There's no discrepancy with this. It's just that some lumber and material, it grows, it swells up. If it's waterlogged, it has water in it. If it's really dry, you can cut it, fit perfectly. Tight, but right. When you put your packages together for your framing, this is your framing, and these are the abbreviations that the framer needs to see on the slab. He needs to see TC, top cripples. He needs to see HDR, that's the header. He needs to see the double S, that's the subseal, okay? That's these members here, subseal. It's the bottom where the window rests upon. And the support of the bottom is the top, but it's the bottom cripples. That's the BC, okay? That's the BC. There will be measurements that will be next to these items on your slab, on the ground. So when your layout man writes this, he has also created a cut sheet or a cut list. That cut list has every cripple that needs to be cut for every header, for windows, for doors. Now, mind you, as the header gets bigger, the cripple gets smaller. It's the top cripple. Your bottom cripples, though, let's finish up the top cripples first. Top of the 4x8, From the top of the 4x8 to up underneath the top plate, it's going to be 4 5/8. I got 11/16, 4 5/8. Okay, 11/16 is perfect. 4 5/8 gives the framer room. Always remember that. It's not much. It's less than a saw blade. Saw blade is going to be within 1/8 of an inch. That's how thick the saw blade is for a worm drive 7 1/4 circular skill saw, or whatever saw brand that you're using. Makita, DeWalt. The framer uses a 7 1/4 inch. I use a Milwaukee. I'm not gonna say Black & Decker because I don't think they go that high, or built a 7 1/4. They may, for home improvement or homeowners. There's difference between circular saws for professionals and people that are handyman or people that work as homeowners. They don't buy the types of saws that we buy. We buy the heavy duty saw, worm drive saws. Carry a lot of power, a lot of kick, and weighs a lot different than the average 7 1/4 home improvement saw. Okay, and it's not a home improvement saw. It's just a smaller version of the worm drive. 4x10. From the top, as you can see, there's getting little room, less and less room for the top cripple, but it's taking up the whole entire space. You need to frame from your header to up underneath. Now this TC, we're getting ready to get to that, and why we have 11/16, or why that's 5/8. We're getting to that. 4x10 header. 4x10 header is going to be 2 11/16, or shall I say 2 5/8. We're going to always repeat that 5/8 again for you because there's nothing wrong with the 11/16. It may be really tight, which means with your hammer you're going to have to put it into place. There's nothing wrong with it. You're sucking up air. You're sucking up and you're making things tight and you're making it right. Okay. 4x12. The gap has just got so small. Well, how can I put a top cripple there? Normally, it's not going to be a 2x4 member. It's going to be a piece of plywood. That airspace that you see here, right there, that needs to be filled in. And in framing, you do not need no space from your plate to your header. That's why the top cripples take up that voided space. They add support from the bottom of that header that transfers from the top plate, the double top, the top plate. All that weight is supporting so that opening can be walked through or looked through. It's a space created so that weight is transferred around the opening. That's what the header support is for. It supports an open space. I'll give you a good example. You're driving a garage. Well, guess what? That garage front has to be framed. The garage doorway has to be framed. It's a large doorway opening. It is a doorway. It's for a car. And the beam, not header, it's a beam size for the header. Okay? It's not the average header that you will actually see for a doorway in a house. This is usually a beam. Back in the days, and I was doing a lot of framing until today, there were glue lambs used. Today, you may have a 4x, which is a 3.5 by 14 to 16 inch header for your garage door opening. And why the 14 or the 16? It's because the wider the opening, the support of the header needs to support that weight where you have taken out space, where there's no support up underneath, so you can drive your car straight through. It's all being supported by that header. That garage beam is the header for the garage doorway opening. Double car garage is for a double cars, 2 cars to drive into. We have 3-car garages, but it's not a 3-car garage space. A 3-car garage will have a separate area because the header's not big enough to span 30 feet, okay? But you do have spanned openings of that nature. And you do have headers or beams. You do have beams that are up to like 16, 18 inches. I seen 18 and 22-inch beam stock, especially 6x, very heavy. So as we go back, pay attention. Cripple sizes for a 2.0, that's this way. The height of it, you have 2.0 windows, but the width of the window is going to be the call out size first. 2.0 by 2.0. Always remember the width and then the length. Width times length. Width first, length second. What these numbers represent here is the length. This is the height from the sub seals. This is the height. 3.0. So your 2.0 is a 2-foot opening, 24 inches. Your bottom cripple measurement is taken from the end of the 2x4, not the ground. The header height is taken from the ground all the way to underneath the header. But the cripple height measurement comes from hooking the 2x4. That's going to be 55.5 inches for a 2.0. That means these seals are going to be very high because 55 inches is like right here. So I'm looking right up at face chin height. But as the opening gets longer, it goes from 2.0 to 3.0, which means the seals start dropping lower, which means the cripple gets shorter. 3.0, your bottom cripples are going to have 41.5 inches. 41.5 inches of a drop from 55. That's a 10-inch drop. No, yeah, that's a foot drop. Okay, 41, 10, yeah, it's 10-inch drop. 41 and a half. 41 and 55. Let's just say that. Okay, so we're dropping to our 3.0 from a 55.5 inch to a 41.5 inch bottom cripple. Okay, so our 4-foot window in height from the bottom of the header to the top of your subseals, that 4.0, that bottom cripple is going to be 29.5 inches, which means here 29.5 inches here. Then you have your double subseals dropping down. So remember, as the window gets longer from the header going towards the ground, the height stays the same, but the seals drop down and the cripple gets shorter. Just like we explained, as the header gets bigger in terms of thickness to the 4x4 to the 4x6, the top cripple gets shorter. These have to be framed into place. They're written out on the ground from your layout guide. The sizes are there. 5.0 window. Yes, there's a such thing as a window being 5 feet. That bottom cripple is going to be 17.5 inches. 17.5 inches. There's nothing wrong if these half inches is cut down to 7/16. It's a 16. Okay. So remember, you got drywall, you have other materials that's going to build up to the actual finish of it. This is the rough opening. The rough opening means that it's rough to where it could be finished. There's room to play when you're in this rough framing process. You have better to have room to not have enough room. You never want to be short on anything. Altering a project while it has already been fixed, set, parts are cut, then when they're put together, you're going to start losing money and materials, time and materials on anything that has to be cut out, almost like a remodel. You don't want to see that on a new construction job. Nor do you want to see new framing adding on to something and then you have this occur. Let's get into a part of a symbol that I want you to also recognize, because it also is a factor in blueprint reading. And every gem and every nugget that I give you on these videos is to increase your chances of reading blueprints. We're getting ready to go into that phase. And all these videos, I promise you, they're not going to be for naught. You're going to be able to actually say, oh, wow, when we get to that model, oh, now I see what he's been talking about all this time. Okay, shear panel. There's a symbol for shear panel. It's in a triangular form. It is a triangle that is put on the blueprints. On the S pages, S1, S2, S3, S4, any one of those pages, you will see shear panel. Shear panel is a piece of plywood, 4 foot by 8 foot, 4 foot in width, 8 foot in length. So shear panel has a nailing schedule. Your shear panel will have numbers right dab smack in the middle of this symbol of the triangle. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And the reason why is because shear panel has a nailing schedule. All these little dots here, they represent nails in the field. The edges is edge nailing, and it specifies that on the print. You will read that on the print. Field nailing is in the middle, or shall I say in Spanish, the media. It's in the media. And the edge is edge nailing. Edge nailing for plywood. Symbols with numbers, your plywood sizes will change. You will go from 1/2 inch, which is 7/16, to 3/8 of an inch. Each one has a different nailing schedule. The nailing schedule must be adhered to. Now you also want to remember that when you're nailing through the nailing schedule, you could be 6 inches apart on the edge and 12 inches in the field apart. That's where the nails are being placed. 6 inches, dot, 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 dot. He has that nail gun and he's got a rhythm. Go in the field, he cannot be over 12. He could be 10, but not over 12. They need so many nails in the field to know that's spaced out. Nobody's got a marker and marking out. These men are professionals. Maybe if you are a novice, you need to be knowing exactly when you got your tape, where you need to mark. You can pre-mark your plywood, where you need to put a nail. On strong walls, they have dots in like blue or red. Sometimes that can represent a nailing pattern that you can create, and then follow that distant pattern. Everything in the industry, when you go into nailing something, is a distant pattern. You want to make sure eye coordination with distant coordination meets and matches the rhythm of the nailing that you're going to create for when you start nailing this off. This plywood, remember, is nailed off on the wall, and you're in the air. You should be on scaffold, tied off, OSHA requirement. Back in the day, though, guys would be off of a ladder. Bop, 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 bop. Bop, 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 bop. Or they'll make a makeshift scaffold, where they'll be on a 2x10 that's built with a makeshift scaffold with no handrails, and that's illegal now, okay? And we want to make sure we also teach you safety. You know, even for all your windows and doors, when you reach the second floor, you're supposed to have them nailed off with a 2x4 at either 40 inches from the ground up, somewhere center along that where it's a handrail, where no one can fall out. We go over that safety factor later on. Back to the shear panel. 3H shear panel, the nailing schedule could be 4 inches on the edge. Always remember the symbol, shear panel symbol. Read what it says. You will be shown it on blueprints that I have here where you can understand it. Right now, I'm lecturing and explaining what you're getting ready to run into. And everything is going to come alive, and you're going to be like, wow, okay, I really get it. So we just went over why the 5/8 or the 11/16 needs to be put in. That's a piece of plywood at the top above your 4x12. And remember, when you reach 4x14s, and if you do have them on a wall, it's for a specific purpose that the engineer has called out. There's something going on upstairs with the trusses, for the floor trusses, that's got the weight factor of this big header here. Maybe there's a beam that's sitting on top of this opening area. That weight must be transferred. Yes, your top cripples can also be 4x members. So you can have a 4x4 or a 4x6 in the middle of the top cripple area above your header. because there may be a beam sitting right on top of your wall, the double top plate, which means you hooked your wall, and beam layout is like a floor joist layout. So you need to understand layout on your second floor happens right at the top plate level, and it's marked. But I can also show you how layout is also ran when it comes to floor joisting that needs to be on the floor. So as your floor joister, he's looking down on the ground, and he knows how many joists that he's dealing with for this one area. It could be the kitchen, could be the living room, it could be the bedrooms. Floor joisting is another art form of framing. So we'll get into that. And that's a very interesting type of layout. And you really need to know how to floor joist layout. It's different. It's not like your average stud, 16 and go 15 and a quarter. No, you're going to follow that 15 and a quarter for the plywood. Of course, for your joist, for your first joist to your 8-foot joist. But you have to understand the methodology of floor joisting, because you have to miss lights, certain bays. A bay is a cavity in between the floor joist that may need for your air conditioning ducting. 18-inch bay. That's outside the 16-inch. And 16-inch on center. 16 inches on center, you're pretty much going to have 14.5-inch bay, okay? But when it comes to an 18-inch bay or 17.5-inch bay, that is the width, the wideness, that space span in between them joists needs to be for a big piece of ducting to go there. And then you also have to understand the floor joists have to flow in a certain way for toilets, for you to miss the toilet flange. If there's an upstairs bathroom, you need to know how to lay out a joist that's going to miss all of that. This can all be done before the joister even gets up there. So when I lay out, I have laid out everything on the ground, and I have marked. I may have even put X's, and I might hook the wall, and I'm gonna write that hook wall. Show you with a mark, hook wall, and I will write that, and I will always say go 16 and go. Then all of a sudden I will say hook joist, and I will mark which joist, hook joist on that layout, and go 2'11" for the next joist. Because if I went 16 and go, and then I stop and had to hook another joist for 2'11", I'm trying to miss something. Yet I'm still trying to stay in alignment with the floor joisting system. This is a system. This is an art that you can learn. The joist is not going to all look 16 and go pretty. There's going to be some joists that's going to be close to each other. And you're going to be like, how did he get that joist? Because he had to miss something. That was upstairs. I probably missed a toilet. I probably had an overspan base somewhere for an air conditioning duct. When we get into joisting layout, it's going to be very interesting. Stay tuned for the videos coming up. Everything is getting ready to change. Thank you for joining me on my channel. I hope you're learning something as we go along. It's going to really get funky in here, because I promise you one thing, learning is going to be fundamental in carpentry. And carpentry is going to drive you into this career where it's going to feed your family. You're going to build with your hands. You're going to read the blueprints. You're going to have the knowledge to take on and build whatever. When somebody say, here's a set of plans, you're going to be able to say, okay, got you. Let me go and open them up. Let me go ahead and study. Let me look through them. Let me come up with a list, a lumber list. Not everybody can do lumber takeoffs. Remember that. Those are your professional guys that have the knowledge and know how to go about and ordering materials. We've been through some of that already. Stay tuned, because it's getting ready to get heavier. And I'm giving you nuggets as we go along. I don't have a complete estimating class yet, but in this framing process, I'm going to be showing you while I get to that point, wow, this is how you estimate your materials for your floor joist. This is how your floor joist size is going to be. It's on the plan. Everything is on the plan. All you have to do is come up with a number and factor on how much you need, especially when it comes to the dead wood, for the backing, for the ceiling joint, for the drywall. Dead wood is called also backing in the West Coast. It's called dead wood on the south end, on the East Coast. So just prepare for terminology to be used and different types of forms and fashion when it comes to structural framing. Stay with us, stay in tune, and get with us, because you know, if you want one of these models, they could be shipped out to your house and you could learn how to frame. Talk to you later. God bless you.